mentioned, I'm a full stack marketing operator. I've worked across industry, so tech, fashion and sports, media and entertainment. Even prior to that, I was in telco for a minute. The consistent theme has been just a bias towards innovation and digital, as I have worked with, whether it's startups within corporations, whether it's incumbents trying to defend their assets. The theme has always been reinvention and growth as audience and channel and product continues to evolve. So to your question around the future is not broadcast, it's architecture. I want to give a shout out to a 60s poet and singer, Gil Scott-Heron, who said the revolution will not be televised. That sort of sentiment still echoes today, even although the circumstances have changed. And really it's around this idea that the marketing playbook used to be the billboard. We bought impressions, right? We sprayed and prayed that our one message would reach everyone. And it did, we just don't know which half did, right? And quick sidebar, if you think about recently, such as Jimmy Kimmel, and when he left his network because he was fired for some comments, and then within less than a week, he was brought back. The interesting insight for me was not the political outcry. The interesting insight was actually that the network, when he came back and delivered his monologue, I think they got 6 million viewers. YouTube tripled, quadrupled that with 21 to 24 million. I want you to let that really resonate.
And at all age ranges.
In all age ranges.
I watched it on YouTube.
So it means the user journey today is multilinear. It's a spaghetti of sorts. And we can't approach it with a billboard mentality, right? We have to, in many ways, become architects. We have to think through the data and the models and the experiences that encompass these systems now that we architect, because they learn over time. I think someone in a previous panel talked about like teaching, the models are teaching themselves. And so the implication for modern marketers is that they definitely have to put down the billboard mic, and they definitely have to put on the hard hats and become growth architects that are thinking through their tech stack, similar to what Amy was saying, where it's this layering of data, content, experimentation, and AI orchestration. And all of those things mashed up as it relates to ingesting real signals that can now deliver messages on a one-to-one basis at scale. So campaigns expire, right? That's how we've been playing the game. But it's architecture that continues to evolve, and that's why we must become architects.
Fantastic. I think that's a great segue. Wanted to talk a little bit about AI-powered growth marketing, but hear from everybody about what's actually changing and how brands reach, scale, and engage with fans.
You want to go first? Sure. Go for it.
Well, I think one of the exciting areas is fan engagement, right? And Mark Abrams has a podcast. He's a professor at Stanford, strategy and communications professor, and this is a few months ago, but he recently, it's episode 205, I think, just sticks in my brain, but he did a wonderful podcast about how AI is being integrated and used in professional basketball. So for the NBA, and again, I'm a Trailblazer fan all the way, so I'm going to use Portland Trailblazers as an example. He talked about, ways of increasing fan engagement and getting on the revenue side of the equation when using AI. And the examples that the Trailblazer staff used was essentially twofold. They looked at post-event or post-basketball game survey feedback, and it used to take them a week to go through and analyze and sort through the important sort of comments and customers that they wanted to address, and then reach out to them if needed or group them into categories and et cetera. And that was a full-time job, an FTE that took, 40 hours to go through that survey data. Well, now in the ways of working, they can identify both customers that were delighted and customers that were disappointed. And they can do that in a rapid time, so they can use an AI bot to go over, analyze the data, identify those people they need to reach out to based on their prompts, and reach out to them. So for example, on the defensive side, there might be somebody who said, hey, I really wanted, I'll make it very Portland, a vegan hot dog at the game, and I didn't have a vegan hot dog, and I'm disappointed and I may not come back. So you reach out to them, you extend them a credit, you give them a discount to the next game, and you add that to your menu. That's more of a defensive stance. On the offensive side, and again, I'm a sports guy, so that's the way I think, but they were using it to identify customers that were delighted. So they had their experience at the game, they really loved it, and they posted on social media or they gave positive feedback on that survey and said, this was a wonderful experience. Well, now they're forwarding that to the sales department and calling that person and sort of saying, hey, are you interested in season tickets, right? So it's on a smaller scale, but you're starting to see those types of initiatives taking place. And I thought that was a really interesting one to highlight.
That's really interesting because what we're seeing, as I said before, across the board is companies looking at use case, right? How do they figure out how to utilize this, but how do they get their ducks in a row before they can? Their data lakes, their tech stack, all of that. But we're seeing the folks who already did that when they should have done that, are actually utilizing those types of personalization mechanisms and CX mechanisms to create competitive differentiation. And so that's where we're now seeing, as somebody before said, entrepreneurship is going to be a golden age of entrepreneurship. Very true, but it's also, we're going to see that leap over the legacy companies who can't get there. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm a big pop culture guy, so my lens is going to be very much in reference to that. So for me, I feel like when you talk about fan engagement, we're literally going through an episode of Black Mirror. Any Black Mirror fans? Okay. So for those that don't know what it is, it's a show on Netflix, and they have all sorts of themes on like these sci-fi thought starters, going back in time, twins, Schrodinger's cat, etc. Anyways, the point I'm making is that AI to me is a black mirror where the fan has become the creator and the creator has become the fan. There's this merging that's happening and the line is getting more and more blurred. Think about Lady Gaga. She dropped an album this year called Mayhem, and instead of just releasing songs one by one, she actually created experiences around her fans. Or think about Beyonce. She had a hashtag mute challenge where in the tour, Renaissance tour, there was a coordination of the fans being on mute for a period of time. So the fan is a part of the experience. They're not a passive watcher or product buyer or downloader of the app, right? They are in many ways co-participants. And that's I think the point of AI as that black mirror. It's lowered the barrier for participation. So, folks who never thought of themselves as creators can now within a prompt, produce a song on par with Pharrell or Timbaland, right? Folks who never thought of themselves as Tarantino can now, through a prompt, combine a sequence of images and have something interesting that could go viral on TikTok, right? And so fan engagement now is not, again, just a passive exercise where you're blasting one song through one medium to reach as many people. It's now this co-creative conspiracy experience where we're all in on it, and whatever comes up is for us to define.
Thank you. I'm going to shift a little bit to talk about scale. We've all kind of talked before about personalization as scale. Want to talk a little bit about what's working, what's getting in the way, and maybe tie that to measurement and how marketing is helping shape the future for brands. Rod, I'm going to throw to you first.
Sure. What's getting in the way? Well, I think we already started to talk about that a little bit. Most of the companies that we work with literally don't know where most of their data is. Literally. Their sales data can't talk to their marketing data. You want to know why? Because their salespeople don't talk to their marketing people. So interestingly, while the technology will lead the future, and as Shakir just said, it literally changes the game and shifts the emphasis of power. It comes down to human relations in the end of the day. When it comes to large corporations being able to implement these strategies, they need to figure out how to get everyone sort of rowing in the same direction, get their data in the same place that is readable. Because somebody in a panel before said, just having the data isn't enough. You got to know what to do with it, and you have to know where it is and also what's actionable and what's trash. And most folks don't. That's what we see. So that's a huge sort of the beginning, is getting that data in a place where the future can look like what you just described, right? Mm-hmm. That's the biggest hurdle I'm seeing, I think.
Yeah, I can comment. The question was around personalization at scale.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm amongst friends, right? Is this being recorded? Because I want to open the kimono a little bit on, a company I work for. So when I was at Lionsgate, I was supporting high-profile comedian. He's in a lot of commercials. I'll leave it at that. Kevin Hart, if you don't know. And he had an OTT app called Laugh Out Loud. It was a big franchise. This was between 2018-19. And I was there to help grow his audience, right? And that process was going into YouTube, looking at retention graphs, looking at where there were drop-offs in the time viewed on the content, and then taking that insight and abbreviating that long-form content into a shorter clip that we could repost and feed the algorithm favorably, so that way we could now begin to start this monetization business that we're, and that was popular at that time for any, any franchise or brand like that. Fast forward 6-7 years later, and now that process can be automated with AI. So where before there was man hours, there was an analyst like myself staring at all these retention curves, where they decayed, where there's peaks, where there are flats, and then exporting that insight to a video person that's now trying to re-edit and so forth. There's AI tools that can clipify content, automatically. It will algorithmically understand where the beats are, where the lags are relative to the hook, the context, and the payoff, and it will shorten the clip for you. So you talk about personalization at scale. For one asset, right, that we created back in 2018-19, we can now spin up 10 to 100 assets in a fraction of the time. And so now when we talk about personalization at scale, it's not a buzzword, it's literally giving time back to now go one by one into your segment clusters and shoot messages that are relevant to how each of those clusters have behaved over time. Personalization at scale, that's what's going on. And what's interesting is, I've actually, in my role as a marketing and AI advisor, I've been talking to different, whether it's brands or high-profile personalities, whatever you want to call them. And there's this level of understanding, but then there's this level of fear because, oh, this is my IP. And I don't want a machine messing with that. And so we're at this strange inflection where by the math of business, which is, hey, we need to do things faster and more, we are actually getting in our own way in a lot of instances. And so my encouragement is to really understand what we're saying by actually using some of these tools, and you'll see that the machine isn't working against you, it's there for you if you understand it.
100%. It's a tool to help you. Like we talked before about the fact that it actually, the fact that you can do all of that in a fraction of the time with a fraction of the workforce enables the organization to open itself up to more creativity, human creativity, and Shakir, I think you used the word really well, taste. AI don't got no taste. and it's not creative because it's not differentiated, right? Anybody who has access to those tools can do the same kind of personalization at scale. How are you continuing to add value to the consumer?
Yeah, that's a huge point, which is even as the machine spins up all these asset variations, choice still has to be made. The challenge, and I think Ben Affleck mentioned this recently at something like this, he said that AI is very good at like infinite production, but it doesn't know when to stop. It doesn't know how to say no. That's what makes us still matter in the loop, the human in the loop, which is we can say stop, right? Because we have taste, we have experience, we have filters to actually understand what has meaning and therefore will connect and therefore give personalization at scale the person that's inside the personalization.
Well, the nature of creativity will change, right? So writing a prompt is going to be part of the creative process.
Absolutely.
And how you write that prompt, like you just said, has everything to do with the output.
Yep.
And knowing when to stop.
Yep.
I think this is a great point. We could talk for hours, but I want to open it up and see if anyone has any questions. All right, I can't get a microphone to you fast enough back there. Project?
We've got him running again. Yes. From my experience, obviously some are doing it better than others, but I'm not gonna lie. I haven't seen any firm, including a lot of Silicon Valley firms who created the technology, actually do it well. Doesn't mean that nobody's doing it. I haven't talked to everybody, but the experience that I have seen is they'll get there, right? And those who get there fastest and get out of their own way, like you were saying, will actually create that competitive differentiation and not get disrupted. I think we're going to see a lot of what I call Kodacking, when companies Kodak themselves, right? Kodak owned the patents that disrupted it. You're going to start to see that happen faster than it happened for Kodak, of course, but I'm not seeing anybody saying, we got it, we've got it figured out. So there's still a lot to learn there. It's because what we saw, anyway, what I saw, was at the outset of this evolution, people just started collecting data. We need data. And then somebody heard that data's the new oil. So wait, that means data's the new power. So that's why you have, it's folks working against their own best interest. You know, they have the data they need, but they're not actually putting it together in such a way that gives them that competitive differentiation. Sorry, I know that sounds negative. Do you guys agree, disagree? It's certainly a process that is ongoing.
I want to kind of ask Shakir to add to that. So if data is power and we have the data but we're not using it, how can we use AI and tech to start to use it better? And then if anyone else has any other questions.
I just want to add after he's done.
Go ahead, Shakir.
Okay. So the question is how to use the data and the tech better. Okay. Well, first and foremost, use it. I know this sounds pretty elementary.
But it's not.
But it's not. And I don't want to get too conceptual, but I have to start here. Because we're in this gold rush with AI. It's a loaded term. And for many, AI signals, are you talking about the Terminator or all this stuff? And really, using the tools, I mentioned at the top, your growth tech stack, you are an architect. Understand, right, in your tech stack, where efficiencies can be gained. Mm-hmm. So, as a marketer, my process is I've got to develop a campaign brief. It has a target audience. There are channels that I'm gonna, go after. Here's the messaging for the product, so it's positioned, et cetera. And then it goes through, the actual development of the campaign. There's a schedule. And then to your question around data, how do we, understand the data and the signals to target the right folks, and then post-analysis. Well, in every step of a campaign process, AI and the tech stack that we've been hinting at can be leveraged. So whether it's ideation around the content, right? It's like you can go to ChatGPT, use it, and say, hey, listen, you can create a custom GPT. Hey, listen, I am a marketer trying to launch XYZ campaign. What would be a good message relative to these constraints? Then there is actual audiences that can be AI audiences that are smart and clustered relative to just all sorts of signals that only AI can really comprehend at the scale we're talking about. So to finish, it's really just going back to using the tools, understanding what mechanic you're trying to pull in your stack, and then integrating it, and then being smart and responsible as much as you can.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. I'll keep this brief because I know we're running out of time. But I do think the one thing that hasn't been said, and maybe I can add on, is around education in your workforce, right? And the shift that's taking place, whether it be marketing or other areas of your business, where you're moving from a more traditional model, you have a title and a job description and these sort of things, to a more skills-based, what can you do, project-based, who can do X, who can participate in this team and be a project manager, or who knows AI, who knows Copilot, who knows how to create agents, all these things, and just get them together. So I think there's a massive effort underway. I know you guys are seeing it, but at larger companies, to train your workforce in a way that can be actively engaged and contribute now.
All right, I know we're running a little long. We have one question right here I want to get to, and then I promise we'll let you guys go to lunch.
Well, what if you were to open source all your data? So this way you don't have to worry about the departments and the companies interacting with each other. And so, Shakira, I appreciate your comment about fans as creators. So, Dean, what if you were to say, here's a campaign brief. I want viral videos about this footwear, and here's all the data we've ever collected about this footwear. All you 10 million fans, we're not going to use our ad agency. We're just going to reward you with some number that's 1/100th the cost of an ad agency. You guys make the top 5 viral ads will win. You guys make our YouTube video. Here's all the data. Go for it. You have a month.
I mean, that would be a real shift for those in the industry. I mean, Nike loves, and this is the tug of war that we're talking about. We were talking about it last night, actually, over dinner. What happens when you try to control the brand and have brand compliance. Like a lot of my interface is in the brand compliance space. We've built an AI tool to look at our content to run our brand content through AI to get scale and efficiencies. But we haven't done exactly what you're talking about, and that would be a real mind shift, I think, right now for at least my industry. We're just not there yet, and we have maybe an iron fist around the brand that we're letting go in maybe limited areas, but boy, that's a tough one.
Can I jump in? Oh, go ahead.
I would also argue that what's the basis of marketing? Why does marketing exist? It exists to create differentiation. That's why we market. That's why we advertise. That's why we create brands. If you did that, let's pretend that Nike didn't, care about its data and gave it away its data. Okay, well, Adidas is going to pick that up and do exactly the same damn thing. So it would backfire. It would backfire on everybody. I don't think it would help anybody. It would be a very short-term strategy with long-term implications. That's what I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's either or, and that's why I was making fun in the previous comment I made about when you say AI, folks jump to Terminator. Our mind leaps to these extremes, and there can be a step function. I don't think it's about destroying the current ecosystem where you're pitting brands against creators. I think you can have a structured sandbox, right? So back to that fan as co-creator, where there are guardrails, right? For instance, Manchester City and Puma, I think they did something within the past year where they effectively gave fans the power to design the next gen of jersey kit, and they could do it through AI, right? And so there was voting, there was polling, I think, like upwards of 200,000 registrants, 1.6 million reviews, whatever. But the point is there is an experiment that worked, that showed that you can allow the fan access to some things. Maybe it's not all the data, that is available, but it's design kits, brand guidelines, right? Some guardrails. And what happens is we honor this movement and this change that's already happening within Gen Z and alphas, right? At this point, it's all rhetorical what we're saying. This is already happening. The question is, are we going to honor that change by respecting these new groups of users and customers? Because there's going to come a point where as much as you are protective, and that, for whatever reason, makes sense, there's going to be alienation and dissolution.
Well, social media showed that.
That's right.
I mean, there are so many case studies of brands that tried to maintain control over the monologue and failed miserably and publicly.
All right, guys, I have to bring us to a very late close, but we're happy to continue the conversation during lunch and talk marketing all day. So thank you all for attending. Thank you for listening. And
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brett, Shakir, and Dean.